Hello and welcome to. It says hi there. Oh, fucked that up. You know what I'm really sick of? Don't answer that, that's a rhetorical question, but either way, I'm really sick of these bloody medieval fantasies that are all apocalyptic plot lines and have no more personality than a spoiled mall girl and no more depth than, well, a small puddle that you couldn't even drown yourself in. What's really needed is a dark fantasy with some fucking substance. For those ill-informed of you, Path of Exile is a free-to-play dark fantasy Diablo 3 style dungeon crawler created by the appropriately named Grinding Gear Games. Now, if you haven't noticed yet from the multiple times that I've mentioned it, what I love about the game's art style is that it's not completely generic. Like I aforementioned, Path of Exile doesn't comply to the average medieval Romanesque art style of fantasy, where it is you who saves the world. No, it isn't. No. Bad. Instead, Grinding Gears has created a dark, moody fantasy that, well, actually looks pretty good. Even compared to most AAA titles of today, this game looks really good, and even runs bloody smoothly as well. Yeah, okay, when you get zoomed in real close, you can see a fair few faults, but most of the time you'll be scrolled all the way out in order to see all of that battlefield that you'll be using. And maybe if you're a smart ass that actually pretends to know what you're talking about, then you'll criticise the filter and art design, complaining that it's just too grim and wet looking. In which case you can go fuck yourself for not nearly being as pretentious or well-informed or as sexually attractive as I. See, this is a thing called prophetic fallacy, in which the weather and filter are meant to represent the grim mood and emotions that the character is going through. Oh, and it's also because a ship just got wrecked, and typically, in dark fantasies, bad weather wrecks ships ashore, killing all the non-important crew and stranding the survivors on an island filled with mystical beasts. But still, my point stays here, that at least there's some personality, as opposed to some bland Celtic magical bullshit where everything's just overgrown nature. So take that, you smart-ass fictional prick. However, I must agree that despite the lighting engine looking rather superb and the graphics themselves looking as detailed as your standard AAA game, there really isn't much graphical customization here for people with different machines. There are but a few settings to fiddle around with, although this game could easily run on most basic laptops, and there only being one perspective in the game, there still seems to be a lack of options to choose from, other than the actual aspect ratios you can choose. So you can't really be as specific with your graphical settings as you wish, and really customize it to fit your own computer. The plot also separates itself from most other generic fantasies. Whilst most fantasies focus on some apocalyptic prophecy, in which you having to be the unique singular individual who will save everything in the world filled with other players with the exact same story, Path of Exile focuses more on you as an individual and your path back home, which fits into the game's world, as there can also be other people with the exact same ideas and exact same goals, because it's a simple objective and not a worldly view. On top of that, it's much more refreshing than you being a prophesized hero/heroine. Along with that, the whole setup and narrative work really well within the game's logic. You start out by selecting your character, more on that later, on board a prison ship transporting exiled prisoners to a distant land, in which you are dumped overboard with a simple weapon.
Nothing like a brisk dip to start the day.
Now, this is actually an easy way to explain why your character is so weak at the start, because they've been on this cramped prison ship for fuck knows how long, and they've just washed up on shore. As an exiled prisoner washed up on shore, you have one clear objective: find your path back home. It's called the title of the game, literally. Along the way, of course, you'll run into all sorts of other survivors who will also want to get back home somewhere or another, and will offer you little side quests to cock around in and help you level up quicker. Actually, here I must add my thoughts and feelings on the voice acting, and more broadly speaking, the actual sound design. Unlike most free-to-play games, or even most games in general, the dialogue and accents actually feel very genuine and authentic. They fit in really well with the setting.
Attention, prisoners! For your crimes against our earth, you have been exiled to the forsaken continent of Rayclast.
Although some of the voice acting is borderline basic, faulting in both the pacing and some of the line reads, I can still forgive this, because the dialogue actually fits the characters, but also because the audio has been treated in a way that it doesn't sound like it's in a studio, and thanks to some reverb and ambient sounds, it feels a lot more genuine and, dare I say, more organic. Now even that's something that doesn't happen in most AAA games. What's also worth noting is the dialogue and the writing, and how it actually fits into the game's style. For example, let's take the character of the witch, firstly because I say so, and secondly because the mythology just seems more believable than most games. Normally, in most fantasy games, a witch is just another female mage that wanders around without anyone batting a fucking eye, which I find hard to believe even in a world of magic. The reason I say this is because dark fantasies tend to be a lot crueler and more hostile in ways, a lot like history if we look back at it through our super progressive time goggles. This links back to mythologies themselves and even real Dark Age events such as the Salem witch trials, in which the Christian movement had people burn innocent pagans to death, in specific pagan women, and keep in mind that this was also a highly misogynistic movement. Part of what fueled the pagan genocide was the skepticism surrounding the paganistic rituals, which propaganda made out to sound like it was women conversing with the devil, and so these women were looked down on and shunned by the rest of society. And in that time there were of course the load of witch hunts, where the villagers would burn down the old woman's house, or just someone that they thought was a witch, for no reason at all. This is basically the whole motivation of the witch character.
Had they not taken my home with fire, I would not have taken their children. Now I'm banished to Rayclast. I've heard the dark rumors, seen the terror in the other exiles' eyes. But to me, one land is like any other.
The character has actual depth and personality to her, and that's just through a short character introduction. The developers have managed to use the voice acting and a small little text box to build up a bigger personality that any fantasy game has really managed to do lately. So well done there, developers. But what about the rest of the characters in the gameplay? After all, this is a game, I think. Yeah, it is. Well, the way that you choose your character is pretty much you choosing your starting attributes, a bit like a predetermined D&D role. Firstly, you have your warrior mage.
I fought, wept, and bled for God and the Order.
Good at doing physical and magical damage close up, but also taking damage. There's the assassin.
A simple job, I was told. Silence a big mouth, get a big payout.
Quick close-up attacks, but sometimes handy with a bow. The warrior.
I have been taken from my people, chained and exiled by cowards who fear death.
Physical damage and tanking. And there's the nature-loving ranger, honourable swordsman, the goth witch, all doing what you'd expect them to do, so it's pretty much simple stuff. All of them have been wrongly and unjustly treated by the established power. It's typical mythology setup, and in some cases can be kind of topical and timeless. But a lot of people will probably be upset to hear that there's not really much customization, physically speaking. Not that being able to change your physical appearance would really matter under all of that armour that you'll be wearing.
That, and it's nearly impossible to find a name that hasn't been taken yet.
And well, yeah, in some cases like in MMOs it can be disappointing to not be able to customise a character. But in this case of a dungeon crawler, I'm okay with it, yeah. There is actually a reason being behind this, and it's because all of the characters have been nicely rounded and all well designed, so their appearance fits their personality. It's a lot like Valve's Team Fortress with the characters in there, apart from, well, hats haven't come and ruined it all yet. On the other hand, maybe that's not what you want control over. Maybe you want to have more power over your starting out attributes, your dexterity, your strength, and other nerdy sounding names. Well, that's where all this levelling shit comes into things. As you level up, you unlock points to put into a fuck-off sized passive skills tree to upgrade your character, and believe me, if you want 100% passive skills, you'll be around a long time, because when I said fuck-off sized, I meant Willie's shrivelling fuck-off sized. The tree is the same for all of the characters, so really you can pick any character, and through all of the grinding you can upgrade yourself to become absolutely any character you want to be. And that's even helped by the fact that you can choose any class you want and still use all of the weapons there are in the game. The developers aren't holding you back with leashes. But my only problem with this here is that maybe the skill tree is a bit too big. I mean, if you want to create a certain type of character, then you're going to be there a long time, and beforehand you're going to have to do a lot of planning, and I mean a lot of planning. However, not all powers are passive, and some are actually used in battle, like your standard lightning balls that you throw around like balls of lightning, or even a dib explosion. And actually, there's a lot of these to choose from. But really, it's not through levelling up that you unlock these, it's by adding little coloured rocks to your slots in the armour and weapons. Each rock gives you different abilities, and because there are so many slots for said abilities, you can actually end up with a large variation of things to do in combat, and this actually makes it more interesting in game instead of just running up and pressing the buttons over and over again to sort of slice like a little prick. Now what's also made interesting, strangely enough, is the whole economy and bartering system. Instead of using a gold currency for everywhere where you can somehow exploit it to buy all the best items by pointless grinding, you actually have to trade genuine items for other items, like a real trading system would. This means that you'll actually work for your trade, and it won't just be pointless grinding to sell off mass numbers of trousers for a stupid amount of gold to buy everything else, something that I've noticed happening in every other RPG economic system. Of course, this being a free-to-play game, I suppose I should cover the monetizing aspect of things, and, well, I was pleasantly surprised here for once. Instead of being a pay-to-win system where you can pay to level up, players can pay something around $20 to buy a pet toad or something, or even just change some aesthetical aspects within the game to show off to your guild and some sword fanatics that also play the game. But the fun doesn't stop there. If you actually have enough disposable income and enough capability using computer design and art, then you can pay the developers around $1,000 to design your own object, enemy or whatever it is, and have it inserted into the game, which I actually think is a brilliant way to get people more involved within your game. As long as they do a good job of it, of course. You don't want some shit design ruining the game for everyone. Really, it's a nice idea, but if you're really going to do so, you're probably going to have a wallet ending up like this. Really, what's most pleasing about this from, well, my perspective, is that the developers aren't doing this for the money. Granted, of course, a lot of the stuff are getting paid for this, but the main head developers are putting in their own investments, and I would say it's heartwarming if I actually had a heart. It's just something nice to know that the developers are putting something out there that they generally care for and aren't demanding for something in return. And in this financially failing world where money has just killed everything that made life worth living for, most developers are purely concerned with making more money. What Grinding Gears have done is follow something that they have a great passion for and follow through making something that they love and hoping that we'll love it in return. Not only that, but they've done a damn good job at it too.